What's up, everybody? Welcome into our channel. Chad Anderson, Jamie Golliver. We talked last week. We kind of got some things rolling on the whole. All right, now what? I've decided it's time to buy a house. This is what we're going to do. We're going to become homeowners. Maybe you're homeowners for a second or third time, but it's been so long since you bought. Maybe you've lived in your house 10 years and you're like, well, what the hell do I do this time?
Yeah, it's been a
I don't,
minute.
I don't even know what I did. I can't even find my original paperwork. My pay stubs weren't even on the computer the last time I bought a house. I don't know what to do. So we went through that and we kind of gave you the, all right, here, get pre-qualified, pre-approved, get your credit ran. Let us look at it. Let us have a conversation with you. Let us find out your goals, set some expectations, and tell you what's even possible. Let's do that. All right. Now you're out shopping. I think that's where we left off, right, Jamie? Was it kind of,
Yes.
all right, now we're going shopping. Now we're looking for some things. And I think today's episode, which is brought to you by Zyrtec, today's episode
and NyQuil here momentarily.
NyQuil, liquid or gel caps? Which one do you?
Yes. Yeah, the liquid makes for a nice chaser with
Yes.
the gel caps.
Absolutely. Yeah. Friday nights get wild at the Golliver household. They're chasing with NyQuil. That's great.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, folks.
All right. So we're to that point. I think that's kind of where we left off was, all right, now it's find the house, get the search going. What are we going to go find? But now let's say, all right, we have found the house. We did all the fun stuff like you see on Property Brothers and House Hunters and Beachfront Owners and International this, whatever else is on, what is it, HGTV and some of those others.
Where there's like a dog whisperer and a ballet instructor with a budget of $850,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a barista at Starbucks, but my budget's $900,000. Let's get this going.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Rarely do you see educators on those shows. I'm just going to throw that out there.
By the way, I want zero money down and I want the seller to pay all the closing costs, or I just want to roll them into the loan. That's all I want to do. I just want the keys, guys. Yeah. I just want the keys. That's all we're looking for here. It's just the keys. All right. So you find the house and now it's time to proceed into the actual contract part of it and the negotiation. This one can be tricky. When you were buying, did you really have any idea how this part went? Like kind of, and this is also why you need a real estate agent. I mean, there's probably like a 2% out of 100 scenario as to why it may be okay if you don't use one, but just get a real estate agent and have some representation. But this is where it gets into the people just truly don't know, like, what can I offer? What's okay? What's acceptable? What's not going to piss anybody off? I really want this house. I'm not just throwing a crazy offer out there, hoping it lands. What was going through your mind on that part of it?
Well, and that's where we were able to lean on you, Chad, as far as when we made the initial offer. We kind of had that thought, well, maybe we can come in a little bit under what it's being listed at. But like you said, not too far under because you don't want to insult anybody. But if you can get a little bit of a better deal, why not go for it? And you walked us through that process, and we were able actually to make an offer $15,000 below listing price. And fortunately, they snatched it right up. If you'll remember that.
Real quick, I want to preface this with this is 2011.
2010. 2010, yes.
Yeah, okay. This is 2010. So the only reason I want to put the kibosh on that is because in today's market, house prices are appreciating 6% year over year. So coming in and at the time, remember, we've talked about this in previous shows. Jamie's got into his house for $135. 15 less is $150. That's a 10% discount off the price. So he got in at 90% of list price. That really doesn't happen today. Yeah. So I just want to more set the expectation. We're talking about the process here. We're not talking about go out and lowball somebody 10% less. Two very different markets from the example we're giving here.
Absolutely. Totally different markets these days. But we wanted to make sure we got what was right for us, and we were able to do that financially. And to be honest, we were comfortable at the listing price too. But we got through that process there, and then after that, I remember I was at the National Writing Project, and we were presenting when you called me, and you're like, Jamie, they've accepted the offer. Here's our next step, and then from there, we got into the different steps that we talked about last week, where you talked about earnest money, and Chad, we joked about this, earlier. I made a joke. I knew kind of what earnest money was. I knew it wasn't money for a guy named Ernest. I didn't know that, but I didn't know a whole lot past that. And then what came after that before we were able to close. So I thought it would be good if we could follow up on last episode's conversation and get into a little bit of the details and specifics of things like earnest money and things like inspection and appraisal and kind of how all of that works.
Yep. So when you're going back and forth, the first part before any of this is done is the contract has to be in place. So like Jamie was saying, if you want to offer something, underneath list price, talk to your agent. Sometimes it's perfectly fine and acceptable. The market is still very, very good. It's still a good market, a hot market, depending on your price point, the shape of the home, the area, the location, all those kinds of things. But it's not 2010 where everybody's selling at a discount. That's not the case. Also, though, it's not 2021 where everybody's paying 40 and 50,000 over the list price and waiving all the contingencies. So right now on the back and forth, you negotiate. In the negotiation, in the contract, there are going to be certain things. That's what we'll talk about here. And that's going to be, you're going to have inspections and contingencies. So what these are is you'll have a right to a home inspection. You have usually about 10 days in order to hire a home inspector. The seller will open up their home to allow the inspector to come in. They'll make sure that the home is good, it's safe, no health and safety issues, nothing to be majorly concerned about. And if there is, then you can do one of two things. You can ask the seller through your agent to repair items, and that's through a request for repairs. The other thing is you can just simply walk away. You can say, that's too much. I don't even want to get into that. I would just rather walk from this house and not do anything else. The other is an appraisal contingency. And a lot of times that's in there where if the home doesn't appraise for the purchase price, then that gives you the right to back out of the deal once the appraisal comes in. However, that's just part of kind of what you're filling out when you're making your offer and going through the contract. Just because you make the offer, they still have to accept it. So also in the offer, you're going to put this thing called earnest money up. And earnest money is a security deposit. Think of it that way. It's a good faith deposit where you're telling the seller, hey, I'm buying a house. It's $300,000. A lot of times 1% is what's acceptable. Some sellers will take less, some want more. It just depends, but 1% is fair. So $3,000 is what you would put up in that case. You give that the seller or the listing agent or the title company, they hold that. And that is deposit money. Basically, that holds your feet to the fire the entire time. That's what it is. It doesn't mean Ernest is going to come to your house and beat you up if you try to get out of it. It doesn't go to a guy named Ernest, as Jamie thought. This is just something that is good faith deposit. And that's what, again, keeps you in the deal. You have skin in the game and so forth. So you don't just wake up on a Tuesday and decide, you know what, I don't want to buy this house. Or you see something else hit the market 2 weeks later and you say, I'm out. I want to go. But the other things that we mentioned are the contingencies that allow you to kind of get out of that. So going back, you write up the contract, earnest money is deposited. But Jamie, we talked about this. It doesn't always have to come from your pocket.
No, absolutely not. So when we were getting ready for that part of the process, we actually reached out to Diana's grandfather, and explained the earnest money situation. And he was able to gift us money to put toward that earnest money, because not everybody's got even 1% necessarily lying around. to go toward that. But we were very, very serious in purchasing the home we're in now. And so we reached out to him. I remember it very vividly, called him on the phone. And they were very generous and gracious, to send that to us as a gift. And that right there helped solidify for me the fact that also shows the seller that you're serious as a buyer when you are able to come up with that earnest money and give it to them in a fairly timely fashion too. So that was very interesting for us to learn how that worked. And we were blessed to be able to do that again, fairly quickly.
And one other note on the earnest money, that money goes towards your down payment and or your closing costs at the end of the process. So if you do $300,000 house, let's say you do a 3% down payment, that's $9,000. Let's say closing costs are $9,000. So that's $18,000 you need at closing. Well, the $3,000 deposit you gave means only $15,000 is still owed at the closing table. And remember, keep in mind, this is another part of the negotiation, and we need to go over this real quick, is the seller can pay some or all of your closing costs. So closing costs, and maybe this should be the next episode, and we'll just tap on it today, but go into it a little deeper next week. But closing costs are the lender, the appraisal, your credit report, the closing attorney, the title insurance. The state and the county are going to get their hand in for transfer taxes and deed recordings. Title insurance, if I didn't say that already. Setting up your escrow account with your homeowner's insurance premiums and your property taxes being put in escrow to set up your escrow account. All those things go in to the closing costs. And again, depending on which program you're doing, depending on how much money you're putting down, those kinds of things, that determines how much a seller can contribute at the closing table to help you out. And again, it depends on the market. Seller's market, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they ain't paying nothing. Zero. You're paying it all. Today, it's a little more negotiable. There's some back and forth. Neither side is really pinned down. It's very specific to the situation. 13, 14 years ago, sellers paid all closing costs, didn't they, Jamie? Every bit of them. Every bit of them.
They did. It's interesting how the market really drives all of those different aspects too, Chad.
Here's the big thing too that people need to understand, and I want to know, your thought on this and kind of what you and Diana thought about here. People don't realize you could actually spend quite a bit of money on a loan or on a house and never close on it because you give earnest money. And just because you give it doesn't 100% mean you get it back. You have to have a legal reason to get it back, which is you have one of those contingencies or get denied for the loan. So earnest money, though, it leaves your account for a little bit. The home inspector, you pay that home inspector. If you and the seller can't negotiate what's going to be repaired by the seller before you take possession, or you decide it's too much and you want to walk away, the home inspector gets paid. They get paid either way. An appraisal gets ordered, an appraisal gets paid for, and an appraisal gets done. The appraiser gets paid. That service is rendered either way. So those kinds of things still take place. And I'm curious on you, were you expecting that, ready for that? I mean, a lot of times just the inspection and the appraisal tally up to be near $1,000 out of pocket up front. And again, you may not even end up with a house at that point.
When we got into the process, I was kind of like earnest money. I didn't realize what all went into that as far as the contingencies go. And as you talked us through that every step of the way, I'm like, okay, inspection. And, I remember some of this very vividly. We were getting ready to do a broadcast one night, and the inspector was supposed to come over that Friday, but he had to reschedule because of something he had going on. And so I was a little nervous there. I'm like, that means it's Friday. It's going to be Monday or Tuesday before he can get over there. So just kind of that waiting was a little, made you a little antsy, but no, didn't really know any of that stuff until we got closer into it. And as I've mentioned, you talked us through it and explained it to us. So having the preparations for these things is so important so that you are able to have the money ready to go and you know what to fully expect. And that's where we're here to help because, been there, done that. So now, Chad, honestly, I didn't know what all went into it until we were into the process. And thankfully, it all worked out for us. And again, just kudos to you because you were able to explain it and answer any and all questions that we had. So while I didn't know exactly what to expect from the beginning, we were never caught off guard by anything because you walked us along every step of the way with that.
Yeah, I mean, I probably annoy the crap out of people with explanations a lot of times. I'm working with some first-time home buyers literally this week, and I feel terrible because I know they want a quick answer. And the problem with quick answers are always dangerous because I feel pressure to give an answer. But at the same time, I don't want to give the wrong answer or false hope. But then you do feel an internal pressure. And I know it's easy to say, well, just be honest with them. I am honest. Like the last thing I want to do is start a file and then in 3 weeks have to tell somebody they don't qualify. That is the last thing I want to do. But there is hope for this couple. And I really, really, really want it to work for them just because I like first-time home buyers. I love them. But you kind of run into that pressure. And I think that's why sometimes, you're mentioning like I can get boring because I just start explaining and like diarrhea of the mouth on how this works and what you do and what to watch out for. And it's meant to be informative. But man, what I've gotten to where I tell people, and of course you guys were great, but is everything we do is truly in good faith. And unfortunately we're human and, mistakes happen or we get blindsided. Maybe we didn't know, maybe we didn't make a mistake. It was just Murphy's Law, that transaction or something. So all those things can and do happen in our industry. So it's never perfect 100% of the time. But you just try to do your best, good faith, explain it all. And we're all guilty of this. Sometimes we just assume. I had somebody mad at me one time. And they weren't mad at me, but I got to be the sounding board. And it was because of the inspection. They wanted their money back for the inspection. And when you break it down for them and you just go, well, who's supposed to pay for the inspection? It's like, you want me to pay for it? Like, why should I pay for it? You start asking like the justification question. Why should I pay for it? Why should your agent pay for it? Why should the seller pay for it? They said you could come in and inspect, but they didn't make you hire that person. And I think those are things, that catch people off guard. And especially in today's economy, when, as we just saw, inflation has no signs of slowing down, people are just holding on to their money a lot of times because they really need it because costs are up. Things are more expensive.
Absolutely.
And so it hurts a little bit more when something doesn't go as planned.
And then, Chad, that's when you can give the teacher response. And it's an honest and sincere response. We've all been asked things that we didn't quite know or that we needed more time to find out. I don't know, but I'll get back to you on that. And people appreciate that honesty and that candor. And they can get impatient. I know, as when we were going through that process, we weren't necessarily impatient. We would just get antsy from time to time. Man, I hope this thing comes through and can be clear. But that honest communication is key because we all don't know what will happen, but just bear with us and we'll find out. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, that's kind of the point of this episode is getting the contract wrapped up, taken care of, and then kind of what comes after that. So the negotiation, get an agent. You need one. They're worth it. I know this whole NAR lawsuit settlement thing is taking place, and and I get it. And there's a lot of opinions, and there's agents defending themselves, and there's other people pointing fingers, and sometimes it's not the index finger. There's a lot of
cats and dogs living together, mass chaos.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. But at the end of the day, you want the experience, somebody who's been through it and kind of knows what to look for and how the flow works and so forth. So keep that in mind. But you got to watch for those and understand, like, hey, if I want to buy a house, I'm ready to go. No matter what loan you're doing, you're still going to need earnest money. You're going to need inspection money, and you're going to need appraisal money in order to basically get the small snowball rolling into the giant avalanche of the loan process and making everything work and kind of get to the finish line. So next week we can talk about those closing costs and some of the loan process, because once you go under contract, once it's accepted and the back and forth is over and that money is spent or it's going out, the loan process really kicks into high gear at that point. So we can go over that, and we'll kind of revert back to this episode slightly and talk closing costs, because again, that can be a part of the contract negotiation. But any final thoughts, Jamie?
No, I just think it's important that everybody knows it's a process like anything else in buying a house, whether it be your first time or second or third or fourth or multiple time, is not always a quick process. But I really appreciate the steps involved with everything, because when you really break it down, Chad, it makes sense. Because if you're buying a home, you want to know what it's worth. You want to know that it's ready to move in. And you want to show them good faith that you're serious. So with the earnest money, with the inspection, with the appraisal, it all really makes sense when you think about it. It's there, in my opinion, to protect the buyer more than anything. And that's always great news if you're looking to purchase a home. That's the way I looked at it once I was able to fully understand the concept behind all of those things.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool, guys. Over here, those are the socials. Check those out. YouTube, Twitter, X. Made a comment. Check on your Kentucky basketball friends this week.
Oh, wow. I've got an interview with Kentucky this weekend, by the way. I'm going to I've been reading The Triangle Offense by Phil Jackson, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you'd probably sign Rodman too.
Somebody's got to clean the glass, Chad.
Instagram,
and also get the rebounds. So.
Yeah. Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, follow, like, download, share, comment, DM. Biggest thing too, if you want to chat with us, and we appreciate those of you who have reached out, and some people who have just started doing a couple a webinar or two through Zoom and explaining some things and going a little bit deeper on some different topics that a lot of people are interested in. The most recent one, discount points, and kind of how those work with the rates and so forth. So all that stuff, all that content, reach out to us. But then we've got a calendar link in the description of this video, and then in the comment section on the other platforms. Set it up 10-15 minutes. Jamie and I listen to your story, your situation scenario, and if we can help, we would love to. So you got something? I see you getting ready for it. I see you getting ready to flinch. So
you've known me for a long time, Chad. No, we are here to help. So please take us up on this offer to help. We speak from a lot of experience, and we just want to pay that forward and help folks out. And speaking of help, I don't think I'll need any help to find the song Closing Time as we talk about closing costs next week.
Hey, there you go. The old cliche dad joke layup. It's not even a dad joke, right? It's just
I was trying to brag that I knew, semisonic or semisonic, depends upon, I guess where you live. I had to hit Closing Time.
Was that an Office reference too?
It was. The Michael Scott rendition of that song is pretty great.
You're all going to be disappointed in this, and we'll wrap this up. I've never seen the whole series of The Office.
Oh, Chad.
I've only seen parts. Never seen the whole series.
We got work to do.
Individual episodes, standalone episodes, never the whole series.
Seasons 1 through 4, some of the best television ever.
Yeah. I heard it got a little worse at the end with Farrell and.
Yeah, once Steve Carell left, it wasn't the same, but they did circle back and did a pretty good job putting a bow on it in the last season. But I will pick select episodes, and I think we'll just have a watch along maybe.
Did you ever watch the British version?
A little bit, probably about like if you watch the American version here or there, but not much.
Oh, okay. They said it's funnier. That's why I was asking.
Oh yeah,
they were wrong.
Everything's usually funnier in England. Huh?
Yeah. The guys who lost over there trying to.
Yeah. How'd that work out for you guys? 0 for 2. 0 for 2.
All right, guys. Y'all take it easy. Have a great one. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, everybody.